to reach the highest levels, you don't get there without some level of obsession.
And I think in order to be obsessive, you got to have a passion for what you're doing too.
So today I have a couple guests. I brought the homie Paulie Malignaggi, multi-time boxing champion, all-around swell guy, ambassador for Italy,
That's me.
unofficial ambassador of Italy, and this is Dr. Shawn Baker. And Shawn is a medical doctor, famous for eating a lot of meat, looking good much later in life than most people ever do, and probably a few other good things. But Shawn, what's your Instagram? You know, a lot of these people might be interested in following your Instagram, or now that Twitter might be a free place, I understand. So, for people that might be interested, how would they find you, Shawn?
Sure. So Instagram is Shawn, it's SHAWN Baker 1967, and then on Twitter it's SBakerMD.
So, a couple thoughts. I'll carry on from what Travis said, and I'll have these fellas share their thoughts. But Travis was talking about managing resources or time management, and the whole study of economics. If you learn from anybody credible, is how do you utilize scarce resources to have the best possible outcomes? It doesn't say that shit's going to be beautiful every day. It doesn't say things are going to be perfect every day. It's a study of how do we utilize the resources available to us to create optimal outcomes, given natural constraints in the world. And I've thought many times there's 168 hours in a week, and who gets 168 hours in a week? Everybody. Smart people and dumb people, rich people and poor people. Everybody gets 168 hours. And the people that utilize that time the best, they tend to have the best outcomes over time. So I thought a topic that I brought some other fellow winners here to discuss is, what are the cost benefits of somebody that gives up on their hopes and dreams, gives up on the future that they, quite literally could easily have earned for themselves, but they don't want to make the effort. They don't want to pay a short-term price to have better outcomes over time. And from a medical background, that's a path that leads to death. Yeah, that if a person doesn't want to take care of themselves over time or does dumbass things for extended periods of time, how does that tend to work out?
Well, yeah, it doesn't tend to work out very well if you're talking about it from a medical standpoint. So yeah, it does end in death. But I think personally, I think you make what your goals your priority, and then everything else has to sort of take a back seat to that. And you have to be almost obsessive about it, in my view. And to reach the highest levels, you don't get there without some level of obsession. And you have to figure out how to make those other things fit in there so you can still have a reasonable life. Take care of your health, take care of the people around you, but at the same time, I think you have to almost have an obsessive desire to get things done.
And I think in order to be obsessive, you got to have a passion for what you're doing too. If you don't like what you're doing, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, it's impossible to be passionate about it. You might say, well, I'm passionate about being successful. There's different paths to getting to be successful. You've got to be passionate about the one that's going to make you successful. Obviously, being successful is enormously advantageous in life, but finding the path that you're passionate about in order to get to that success is important. We all have different paths. Dr. Baker obviously is a doctor, has plenty of schooling, right? For me, I didn't finish school at all, but I knew I wanted to be successful and I wanted to put it in the work, and I'll tell you what, I can remember being an amateur boxer, and there was a couple of really talented kids in the amateurs that I remember stopped boxing. They just quit. They got a couple of bad breaks. Maybe decisions didn't go their way in tournaments that they should have won. Maybe they were justified to be annoyed by it. Whatever it is, sometimes that's the point of life. Sometimes the barriers get in your way, and you can't do anything about it. But we all have an I quit card if we want to use it, right? But do we choose to use it? That's what separates the men from the boys, the women from the girls, right? It's your ability to overcome those moments. And I remember seeing a couple of those kids quit. And I remember sometimes I got a couple of bad breaks in the amateurs. And I remember thinking about those kids that had quit when they got a couple of bad breaks. And I remember one time even my grandfather saying, this is total BS. You shouldn't even be chasing this if they're going to do this to you. And I just remember thinking, I was about 18, 19 years old. And I remember thinking to myself, if I quit right now, in 10 years, am I just going to be the guy in the cafe that's talking about I coulda, shoulda, woulda done this? And people look at me like, because I'd seen those kind of older guys at that age that would say, I could have been this and they could have been this. And you kind of take them with a grain of salt. You kind of be like, is he telling the truth, or is he like, or is he, you know, or is he just kind of exaggerating, you know? Important goals take long-term work. It's not, there's no overnight successes, right? Everybody, I remember there was a saying, it says, it takes 10 years to become an overnight success, and it's kind of true. So over those years of achieving that success, not every day is a good day. Sometimes they're even really bad days. Sometimes the break's really bad. So we all can use that I quit card if we want to use it. But in the end, if you overcome and you keep achieving, those long-term goals can be rewarding. Achieving those goals can be rewarding. And of course, from a financial standpoint, obviously it's very rewarding, but also from a psychological standpoint, that you achieved something that took a lot of work to do. And that I think is important, you know, and I think it's very important. You don't cut your nose off to spite your face, because long term you'll regret it more. A difficult moment is only a moment, but long term you'll thank yourself for getting through any difficult moments, and once you've achieved that goal, and you're gonna look back and say, you know, it wasn't that bad. Yeah, it's well worth it that I achieved what I achieved now.
Paulie went on to be a world champion in 2 different weight divisions. 2 different weight divisions. You had the belt. You were world champion. 2 different weight divisions. And you know, how many times would a normal person give up? Probably they would have given up before then. They wouldn't have spent 6 months in the gym to begin with.
Yeah.
So probably they would have given up before then. But how many times would a person give up on themselves? You know, well, if they had your circumstances.
The more difficult things are, the more easy I think people will quit. You know, it's human nature to want to take the path of least resistance sometimes, but you've got to sort of give yourself that pep talk that, you know, the path of least resistance usually leads to nothing good, you know, and the path of resistance a lot of times has its rewards for getting through it. You know, not to mention, besides learning, you're building character along the way, because having no resistance only enables you and spoils you, right? So these difficult paths that we may choose and that lead to great successes, they're character builders as well as learning experiences. And I remember, as I was starting to have success, even in my amateur career, there was kids from my neighborhood all the time would come, hey man, I want to come to the gym with you. I want to try this too. Hey, sure, just be at the train station at this time tomorrow. I'll be there, and I'll be taking the train to the gym. You can come with me. You know, sometimes they'd show up, sometimes they wouldn't. Sometimes they'd show up, but none of them lasted maybe more than a week or 2, even if they wanted to train. You know, it's like it was too much resistance for them, and they'd rather go do something else. But years later, you know, when I was achieving everything I was achieving, I was really thankful that I got through all those moments where I could have been. I may have missed the spring break trips to Cancun during my teen years or early 20s, or I may have missed certain other things. But then years later, while I was still young, I mean, I was in my mid-20s and I was already a world champion. I was experiencing things that, you know, most people couldn't afford to experience anymore, you know, and I was able to do that because I had, you know, achieved my successes, and I was able to do that while doing something that I love to do, which was being a pro athlete.
A lot of people, they call what you're describing, they call those sacrifices, that they made sacrifices. And I think the more appropriate word is, no, you made an investment in your future, that you believed in a brighter future. You saw a path of a, you know.
Keyword, your future. Investment in your future.
Yeah.
Nobody will take care of yourself better than you yourself. You know, nobody will ever care more about yourself than yourself. But how important is that to you, understanding that?
There's a couple people here that, despite this conversation, a couple of you are going to give up on yourselves this week. And I'm never going to know who you are. I'm never going to spend a bit of time with you. I'm not going to know much about it. I frankly don't give a shit. I don't want to hang out with losers. So if you're dedicated to a path of mediocrity, then I accept. But I do want to encourage those of you that are on the fence, that are thinking about giving up on yourself this week. Like, well, you could do that, and you could continue living life more or less as you have. And as time goes by, your opportunities are less and less because you didn't make those investments earlier, and you miss out on the intellectual compounding. You miss out on the social compounding. You miss out on the financial compounding, and you know that it's just a path to mediocrity. But you know, some of you, I hope that this is a bit of inspiration. I'm sure, you know, Dr. Baker has his own thoughts of a few perspectives. That is a man that's been lifting weights for 40 years. This man that had a bit of wrestling earlier in life and started taking up some MMA later in life. And both of us are, you know, relatively new in MMA, but you took the time to get a doctorate degree. You took the time to make a very unique and I think impressive career for yourself, and you've kept yourself in phenomenal shape over the years. That I suspect there might have been a moment or two that you were frustrated and maybe didn't feel like doing it today, but you also reminded yourself that, forgive my language, that you're not a bitch and you're going to go do the thing that you know you're supposed to do. Were there some moments like that, I imagine, along the way?
Yeah, I mean, I want to just piggybacking on what Paulie said, once you sort of become successful in any endeavor, doesn't matter what it is, that gives you the foundation to figure out how to be successful in multiple things. I started at 16 years of age, I knew I wanted to be a doctor. I started studying for the medical college acceptance test that you take as a junior in college as a 16-year-old. When the time that came for me to take that test, I blew the thing out of the water, got into medical school of my choice. I ended up quitting medical school to go play professional rugby, which is another thing. But I became very successful. That played at some of the highest levels in the world. And then I went and did powerlifting, and I was able to set national records in that. And then I went on to strongman. I won Texas Strongest Man and placed very highly at the national championships. And then from there, I went on into track and field and became an All-American as a masters athlete. And then I went from there to Highland Games, where I won a world championship. And then I went from there to competitive rowing, where I won world championships and set world records in there. It's just over and over. You figure out whatever it takes to be successful. Once you achieve one success and overcome something that's very difficult, it opens up. You have the mindset. You have the tools in your toolbox. It's just a matter of just reapplying that over and over and over again. And then I went from there, as a successful surgeon, and now I founded a company, which I never thought I'd do, but it's the same thing. It's just hard work, it's dedication, it's not accepting no, it's not accepting failure, and you just grind and grind and grind until it happens. And the more you are successful at it, the easier it becomes to do it. The mindset's easier. It's still hard work. It's always going to be hard work, but you got to you got to be able to put that out there and do that day in and day out.
How have you thought about that? What was your internal self-talk? There's something that helped me a lot. And I didn't do this earlier in life. I wasn't smart enough to do this, but I kind of had a click around age 30 that I'm like, hey idiot, you're not making a sacrifice. You're not giving up, spring break and some bullshit Cancun or wherever else. I went there once, by the way. I was about 29, and it was disgusting. Cancun was a beautiful place, except all the Americans came to ruin it that week, But you're not giving up something. You're quite literally making an investment that compounds over time to have a better future, to have more of those, stack more wins, stack more things that. These are the foundation of your confidence, or foundation of self-esteem. Is a person sets a goal and they accomplish that goal, and then they have the audacity to set a bit larger goal, and so on and so on. But how do you think about that in your internal self-talk over time?
Well, I challenge myself, and I'll be crude here. I say, don't be a fucking pussy. I'm like, that's what I think to myself.
Oh, good. I can say vulgar words. I didn't know if it was bothering your career. Oh, good.
I'll tell you, when I was in Afghanistan doing trauma surgery in the gym, trying to clean 300 pounds, and I missed it. I was, and somebody said something. I think we're at war.
Yeah.
I don't care, But So I'll do that. But I would often, and Paulie would know that when he was training, you have an opponent in front of you. You know who you've got to better, and so it's always nice to sort of say, I can do better than this other person. But it doesn't have to be a person. It can be a thing. It can be your old self. You have to have something that you can yardstick yourself against and say, I want to be better than that. And that's what I did. What I did last week, can I do better this week? And whether it's athletic endeavors, business endeavors, whatever it is, continuous desire to improve upon yourself. And it's never too late. You're never too old. You can always get better than you are today.
I think one of those best opponents, I think my best opponent has been, competing against your past self, and having that thought in your head of like, well, I did this, and 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 I know I can do better. I know I can continue to be better than I am, and that's helped me a lot. That there's many times, and I think this is maybe a useful thing for all three of us to share also, because I don't want anybody to hear or to have the perception that like, well, those guys are different, or easy for you to say, Paulie, you're a world champion. Easy for you to say, Derek, you're hung like a mule. I understand, but I all of us have moments of self-doubt, or all of us have moments where I don't feel like it. You know, there's a couple of days a week I wake up and I got something to do today that
but
maybe I don't feel like it.
everybody always sees the road at the end, which is a success, but they don't see the beginning, the humble beginnings, and those moments where all of us were just like you know, where, you know, just self-doubt, and there's, you know, you just want to overcome, but, you know, there's a lot of question marks for you too, and you got decisions to make, very, very difficult decisions to make, you know, but we make them, you know, the ones that, there's that percentage of people that, you know, they're sort of a cut above the rest for a reason, and it's because they're willing to make the tough decisions. They have the character. They don't allow themselves to be enabled and spoiled, and ultimately, long term, it's the kind of person you want to be, because long term, having that character, it gives you success, and it also gives you a foundation, I think, for just being a better person and more logical person in life.
You've been coming over, you know, an awful lot and very consistently, and you know, we get, I don't know, 8 to 10 hours in training in about 45, 50 hours time. Mm-hmm. And, you know, was there ever a time that I'm like, you know, that didn't show up, or ever a time that
As a matter of fact, there were times where you were tired and you didn't sleep and you had a lot of other things going on, but you still showed up every single time. You knew it was part of the schedule, and you didn't make excuses for it. You went and you showed up, and you worked hard too. You didn't half-ass it either.
I ever text you or call you and say, hey, I got a lot going on this week. Could we reschedule some shit?
No.
I would never do that. I would never do that.
I was living on my coach's living room on a mattress, you know. I ended up like just bouncing at a bar. I'd been a cop, I quit my job. And
Derek Moneyberg presents 10 Commandments of Wealth.
took the gamble on myself to become a successful professional fighter and make it to the UFC or Pride, and at the time. And
am I making a sacrifice right now, or am I just investing in a better future? So it's easier for me to make those decisions when I think about it. It's like, oh.
Yeah, absolutely. And now that you mention it, having to actually really process and think about it, I think that word sacrifice is kind of like, I believe it's the word that the ones at the top kind of use to make everyone else feel better about it. Because when you're at the top, now you realize that was an investment.
Was everything just golden and easy and handed to you, or do you have a little struggle yourself along the way?
No. Yeah, in 2013 and 2015, I was living out of my car, you know, full time, and I was too proud to ask for help. Like, how ridiculous is that? You're living out of your car and you think you know it all. And 2015, that's when I kind of I knew that I didn't know it all. So why not find experts in that and really shortcut that? I thought I was going to just chip away. I thought I was just going to read books till I was an expert. Mm-hmm. I never really talked to anyone that actually did it.
It's been about a week since I've joined the 10 Commandments of Wealth program, and there's so many interviews that are offered in this program.
I'm inside the Derek Moneyberg 10 Commandments of Wealth program. This is an awesome program that you're gonna love. I'm gonna use the principles and the knowledge from this program to help me boost my leads in my marketing firm. Buy this program, it's a wonderful investment for your future. You won't regret it, and you'll absolutely love it.